Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee meeting today, the 5th of December 2025. Item 1, Introductions and Membership of Committee. Could I ask the members to introduce themselves and the panels that they chair?
Morning everyone. Councillor Itrat Ali, I'm Chair of Children's Scrutiny.
Good morning, Councillor Jo Lawson, Chair of Health and Adult Social Care.
Morning, Councillor Zarina Amin, Chair of Growth and Regeneration.
Thank you very much. We've received apologies from Councillor Andrew Cooper, and Councillor Nasheem Dad, the corporate portfolio holder, has also sent her apologies. Item 2, interests. If any members have any interest to disclose, could they do that now? No. Item 3, admission of the public. This is a meeting open to the public and is being webcast live. The recording will also be able to be viewed after the meeting on the Council's website. All items will be considered in this public session. Item 4, deputations and petitions. No deputations or petitions have been received. Item 5, public question time. No questions have been received. Item 6, Corporate Financial Monitoring Quarter 2 Report 25-26. This is the financial monitoring for the General Fund, Revenue, Designated School Grant, Housing Revenue Account and Capital Plan as at Quarter 2 25-26, with reference to the report submitted to Cabinet on the 2nd of December 2025. Could I ask Councillor Turner to introduce the item and then John Bartlett, Head of Commercial Services, to present the report?
Chair, thank you. As you pointed out, this went through Cabinet on Tuesday. This report does cover the General Fund Revenue, Dedicated Schools Grant, Housing Revenue Account. So one or two key points. Forecast overspend of 5.1 million, which is down from 5.9 at Q1, which is the lowest Q overspent since COVID. So main pressures, there's some slippage in savings delivery, 6.6 mil. Demand-led pressures in children's services and adults and health. The overspend will require use of reserves if not reduced. The in-year deficit of 14.7, cumulative deficit now 78.5 million for dedicated schools grant. So there's a safety valve agreement of 2.51 million annual contribution for 5 years, and the statutory override extended to March 2028, which is good news. The HRA has a forecast underspend of 318k. Year-end reserves forecast at 19 million, but pressures do remain on building safety and disrepair cases. Improvements noted on damp and mould. Capital plan revised budget 254.6, down by 29.3 million from the original estimates. 28.9 is being reprofiled into future years. 0.8 increase from pressure from grants, section 106. So key approvals requested: the community grant, cohesion grant of 170, Mayor Renewables grant of phase 1 of 110k. Treasury management prudential indicators note underspend of 1.9 due to lowering borrowing costs and interest income. So I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just talk you through the Q2 budget monitoring position that Councillor Turner has just outlined the key points. So yes, at Q2, there's a projected outturn pressure of 5.1 million. This has reduced from 5.9 million at quarter 1. Of the 25-26 savings target of 30.2 million, we're on track to deliver approximately 78% of this. The forecast outturn position at Q2 is after the use of 5.3 million of budget contingency reserve. So if we'd not used that, we would have been looking at a 10.4 million pressure. And within that, there is 6.6 million of slippage on the savings programme. So if we'd have looked to achieve more than the 78%, we'd have been in a slightly better position. And just to note as well, if the overspend position remains at year end, this will be needed to be will need to be funded from general fund reserves. So this slide shows us the Directorate Performance position. You can see that children and families, adults and health and place are overspent, and public health, corporate resources, central budgets are underspent. And you can see there that you can see the 5.3 million use of budget contingency reserve. So the key reasons for the overspend, for both children's and adults, it's demand that's driving the pressure. In children's, the placement budgets are 3.9 million overspent. One of the key issues there is external residential placements. At Q2, there were 45 external residential placements with an average weekly price of 6.5 thousand. In adults, you can see that residential and nursing, independent home care services are the key drivers for the pressure there. They are offset by underspends in shared lives, carers and emergency support, and on self-directed support payments. Also to note, in adults, there's 2.7 million slippage on their savings target. That will be covered off through the budget contingency reserve. In place, there's a key pressure of 2.1 million in home to school transport, again driven by increases in demands and costs. This again will be covered off through the budget contingency reserve. There are also pressures on parking and the management and maintenance of council buildings. On a more positive note, public health corporate resources and spent by 700,000. That's predominantly due to vacancies being held across the directorate. There are pressures within public health and corporate resources within legal services of £500,000 and on the housing benefit subsidy of 0.7 million. Central budgets have an underspend of 1.9 million. This sits mainly within the Treasury management budgets, results from slippage in the in-year capital plan and lower interest rates on borrowing. This slide shows an overview of the HRA, the Housing Revenue Account, their forecast position at Q2. It's a positive position, a slight underspend of 318,000, and if that remains at the end of the year, that will be transferred into their reserves. Capital. As Councillor Turner noted, the capital budget's been reprofiled down to 254.6 million from 283.9. That's across General Fund and HRA. So that's a reduction of 29.3 million. The vast majority of that is due to reprofiling projects into future years. General Fund 23.4 million and HRA 5.5 million. We've also received a little bit more funding through grants, Section 106. But we also are taking out 1.3 million of projects. Officers continue to review the multi-year capital plan and the associated budget profiles. And then finally, the DSG, that's the dedicated school grant. The high needs block has an in-year projected overspend of 14.7 million. I just thought I'd look through the funding allocation. So we get 65.4 million from the DFE. We also get 2.3 million per year from Safety Valve. We have transferred 3.6 million and 0.5 million out of various school blocks to help cover the costs in that against high needs. And we're also making 2.1 million general fund contribution. That's part of the Safety Valve agreement and will continue until the end of the agreement in 29/30. So we can see we've got 73.9 million available, but unfortunately we're projected to spend 88.6 million this year, which gives an in-year deficit of 14.7 million. Add that to the 25/6 cumulative deficit position leaves us with a potential pressure of 78.5 million at year end. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members? Can I just ask a question? Well, it comes up a lot of the time, and I think over the years it's shown as an issue when I chair the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Panel around external placements and the length of time that's been taking place and what's been done to try and resolve that.
So the children's services are looking to develop more in-house provision in terms of internal residential. Their key aim is to have children living at home as much as they can. So there is investment going into the budget next year around an edge of care service and into fostering teams as well to help children remain in those placements rather than the external residential placements.
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I note in the chart that there is that some of the overspending, some of the services in adult health and social care is due to the rise in demand. We are a rapidly ageing population. What is being done to reflect that year in and year out?
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Investment will be going into the budget next year to help address those pressures that you talk about there.
Councillor Turner would like to come in.
Excuse me. Just in children's services, of course, we are in the process of building 2 new special schools, which will enable us to bring a lot of those external placements back into Kirklees, which is actually the right thing morally to do, as well as eventually will save us money. But so those are under construction now, and hopefully they won't. Weather's been a bit against us at the moment, but they are certainly one's on target, one's a little bit behind due to weather. But as I said, massive investment in 2 new special schools, which will enable us to bring significant numbers of children back into Kirklees, and will also give us for the first time capacity for women, young girls, because we don't have capacity for young girls and women in this in the council. So freeing those places that will be a benefit for those as well. So morally, that's the right thing to do, because so we don't have any capacity at the moment for them.
Thank you. Is on another note, is within the in-house residential and supported living there, is I note the projected overspend there. Is there actually Ings Grove, which is obviously stepped down accommodation, has it's looking at the actual, it's implying that it's overstaffed. What is actually being done, because in like that also has a very poor Ofsted, a recent very poor Ofsted report, and I would suggest that sort of trying to cut back on actual staffing was at this time was probably the wrong thing to do.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lawson. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there at Ings Grove, but I will find out and get back to you.
And just one further question regarding the East Castle Grange and Claremont House. Obviously, it was hoped that they would have been transferred into the private sector. Can you actually tell me how they are actually being funded at the moment? Because obviously it wouldn't have been in the budget.
As I understand, they are still being funded as a council pressure, and that's being picked up through the budget contingency reserve to cover those off.
Thank you. In relation to reserves, how is the level of reserves being managed? Are current reserve levels appropriate given future uncertainties? And what conditions or triggers would lead to a call on those reserves?
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Burke. At the moment, we've got 63 million of usable reserves. That's projected up to the 31st of March 2026. Of those, 37 million is earmarked and 26 million is unallocated. As we noted earlier, if we've got an overspend position at the end of the year, we will need to use reserves to cover that off, which would then be reducing those reserves. Whilst we've got the funds to do that 1 year, it does reduce the ability to invest in other things moving forward. And if that continues, obviously the reserves will run dry. Is that okay?
Thank you. Just Councillor Turner.
Just on the level of reserves, it's predicted at the end of the year to be within what we would like them to be. There's obviously ring-fence reserves, but the unring-fence reserves are where we expect them to be a significant amount of money. Not mega millions, but enough to keep us going should the unforeseen happen. But we're confident, especially with the potential settlement from government, that next year's position will be a little bit better anyway for the general budget anyway. So, but we're confident with our level of reserves, and we're happy with them at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Following on from that, I suppose, slightly different about financial risks or pressures. Are there any emerging financial risks or pressures, such as inflation or demand-led spending, that are not yet reflected in that report?
I think at Q2 we are reporting what we are aware of. As I say, investment is going into the budget in 26-27, which will help mitigate some of the increases in demand and inflation.
Councillor Turner?
As has been pointed out, we take into account at that point in time where the economy is, where the world economy is, etc. We take that all into account when we produce these figures, so they are as accurate as possible, given they're a little bit out of date now. Going forward, I think there's less risk than previous years. I think in actual fact, there's a good chance that we will see a fall in interest rates in December, if certainly not December, January, which will improve our treasury management position. So in many ways, it's a relatively positive position we're in at the moment, I think, as long as nothing comes from left field and nobody's spotted. But on the whole, I think we're in a really strong position at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Are there any other questions or comments from panel members? No? Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Turner, John, for attending and for your update to committee. The current position is to be noted and to be recommended that these reports continue to be submitted to the committee on a regular basis so that lead members can pick up any items within the remit of their panel that may require further scrutiny. Thank you. Item 7, Council Plan and Performance Update, Quarter 2, 25-26. This is the Council Plan and Performance Update report for Quarter 2, 25-26 with reference to the report that was submitted to Cabinet on the 2nd of December. Councillor Patterson will introduce. Then I'll ask Mike Henry, Head of Data, to present the report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you say, this is the Council Plan and Performance Update, which covers the Council Plan priorities, the Council's key measures, and on this occasion, the transformation portfolio for 25-26. Each quarter, when we've come back to you and discussed this with you, then we've highlighted a few key areas. Last time, I think, unfortunately, they were more negative issues than positive ones, but this time it's the other way around. There's a more key positive messages than negative ones, which I'd just quickly like to highlight to you, and then I'll hand over to Mike. We've improved the timeliness of our EHCP plans, education, health and care plans. That's improved. The proportion of children who have been looked after in the same placement for 2 or more years has improved. I think that's a really good thing to hear. The percentage of freedom of information requests completed in time has increased during the last 12 months. Collection rates for business rates are higher than they were 12 months ago. And again, a couple of really important or pleasing issues to see. The number of open damp, mould and condensation cases continues to reduce, and we've really got on top of the backlog there. And similarly, with the non-emergency housing responsive repairs that have been completed within the timescales, that's improved. And then finally, the percentage of mothers smoking during pregnancy has reduced. So those are all very positive measures that have taken place. The negative ones, unfortunately, but of course we'll still be working on all these. The number of people who have come into or been introduced to adult social care has risen, and I think this goes back to a point that was asked of you or asked of my colleague earlier, has risen by nearly 200 over the last 12 months, with an increase of 70 over the last 3 months. So not only have we got an ageing population, there's an increase in demand within that as well. Collection rates for council tax are lower than they were 12 months ago, but hopefully there's still time to claw that back before the end of the year. And then finally, sickness rates for our employees is 0.19 higher days than it was 12 months ago. That's something that again, is a priority for us at the moment to tackle sickness rates within the council. So that I will hand over. Thank you.
Thank you. The lead has pretty much covered what I was going to cover in terms of the council performance highlights. As the lead has mentioned, this report also includes an update on the transformation portfolio. So I'll hand over to my colleague Claire, who will just run through that update on the transformation programme.
Thank you. Just as a means of introduction, I'm Claire Ashurst-Bagshaw. I'm Head of Transformation and Culture Change in the Corporate Centre. I just want to set some context. This is the first time that we've included an update on the transformation portfolio. We committed earlier this year to ensuring that there was more visibility and oversight around the delivery of the portfolio. It went to Cabinet last week and it's here. Moving forward, we'll be reporting twice a year, so we'll be coming at the end of Q4 with an annual update. So the purpose of this update is to provide you with an overview of Q2 performance in relation to the portfolio. The portfolio is the Council's strategic programme of change. It brings together a range of programmes and initiatives that are designed to deliver the ambitions set out in the Council plan. And in terms of what we aim to deliver within that portfolio, broadly, we're looking to improve outcomes for residents and communities and the organisation, to deliver the priorities as I mentioned in the council plan, foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement, achieve better value for money and enhance customer experience and service delivery. It's important to note that in terms of governance, if you just want to move on to the next slide, please. In terms of governance, we report on a 6-weekly cycle into exec and then into EB and then cabinet and then into this group. Each of the programmes have an SRO who are the lead for those programmes. The programme is delivered by a range of officers across the organisation. Our personal team have a dual role. We provide a PMO function, which is oversight and assurance through a business partner model, and then reporting up into the governance arrangements. But we also provide expertise and skills in order to be able to drive delivery across some of that portfolio. If you just want to just move on. So just in the Appendix B to the report, you will see that you've received a dashboard set which gives you an overview of where that programme was at Q2. This slide just shows you that overarching RAG status of that current programme. Our risk assessment and arrangements are in line with the corporate risk process. And just in terms of an explanation of that the RAG rating, yes, there are lots of reds and ambers in there, and my way of understanding in that is it's just make sure it's with the intention of making sure that there are things to know about that programme. I think if there are detailed questions that you've got about specific programmes, I think an appropriate place to take those would be member panels, where you could invite the SRO and the people that are delivering those programmes in. But if you've got specific questions today, we'll do our best to answer them.
Just to add a couple of things just to help out in terms of some of the terms within there. So when we say SRO, we mean the senior responsible owner for the work, which is a lead director, usually one of the executive directors in most of those cases. And to emphasise a key point that Claire made, when she says PMO, she means our portfolio management office, which is where we organise the transformation programme, the reporting, the check, the challenge activities through there and provide support into a number of those programmes. So the corporate function works with the individual services on those activities, just for clarification.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from panel members? Councillor Amin.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So I think my concern is around, and it is a priority, is the sickness and how the council is looking at addressing that, really. If someone could just go through that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Rachel Spencer-Henschel, Deputy Chief Executive and Exec Director for Public Health and Corporate Resources. Sickness, as you see in the performance report, has slightly increased. Partly because we've done a really strong focus on sickness. We do think that actually more people are recording sickness that perhaps weren't before. So some of that increase is probably, we already had that level of sickness, but people weren't putting it on the right system. So some of that's because we have done a proper deep dive in it. As part of our quarterly check and challenge that we do on all the finance, performance and risk information, as officers, we've focused very much on sickness, and we've asked everybody that's come forward with any sort of level of high sickness for their action plans in terms of how we address that. We've got a significant issue with, well, significant in terms of it's predominantly about anxiety and mental health issues in a lot of our staff. Frontline workers tend to generally be more musculoskeletal problems. So we're trying to support staff through Care First and employer healthcare in terms of access to counselling. I know Councillor Burke recently had a briefing on the people strategy, and he may wish to comment, or indeed we can bring that to a future meeting when you think it's appropriate.
How do you measure whether or not the counselling works? I mean, I've got a little bit of experience in that area, and some of the feedback is it's not that good in terms of the level of counselling or what's required. It works for some, it doesn't work for everyone. It's not a one size fits all. So how do you look at how it's measured, really? Thank you.
I think, as you say, it's really complex, isn't it, in terms of what's going on in people's lives and whether that counselling is appropriate. We have recently brought in different forms of counselling. So we've got, it's something called EMDR, which is a kind of new technique that you may or may not be aware of, and that seems to be proving to be quite successful. The challenge is because there's a long waiting list in the NHS, then it might be that other mental health services are more appropriate, but people can't necessarily get referred into them. So we're trying to work with our NHS colleagues to make sure we can get people into the services that they want. I think it really does depend. For some people it does work. What I think we find is the earlier people get support, the better, because what we find is if somebody's been off for quite a long time and they haven't sought any kind of support, it's much harder to get them back into work. Whereas if we can do it more on a preventative basis, it'll hopefully help people not going off sick at all.
Just one last question on that. In terms of support, do you have like an action plan or something that you use to kind of monitor that ongoing support and whether it's working or not?
Yes, we do. We've both got it from the employer healthcare perspective in terms of they will look at success rates, and then obviously the manager will be following the sickness absence process and you know, looking at the different triggers and making sure that everything's being done where it can.
So, sorry. So just in terms of the Health and Safety at Work Act for frontline workers, do they have that? I think I can't think of the name of the action plan that they use in terms of the safety. I think there's a corporate requirement, but then there's also a requirement at that particular level as well. So are those in place?
Yeah, very much so. We recently had some cases of HAVs, you know, the hand and arm vibration in some of our workers. So we've got those assessments very quickly in for any new staff to make sure that anybody that's at risk of that we identify earlier and make sure they're not doing work that's going to exacerbate that condition. But certainly from a health and safety perspective, we've got really rigorous processing, and we report on every single workplace accident or incident so that we can then build learning and make sure that we do that regularly.
Just to follow up on the briefing that I had regarding the people strategy, so I did go into some detail around sickness. and the information received around the dashboard for each directorate now that's available. So I've asked for more data to provide an overview of the workforce sickness absence as well, which I'll be able to share once I receive that. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you. Following on from the question around the rise in actual sickness, are there any particular services where work-related stress is the main feature?
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. It's really, there isn't one that stands out. It's very much across the organisation in various pockets. I will say, though, that for areas that are undergoing quite significant service change, you do tend to get a higher sickness rate because people, you know, often struggle with change. We did recently do a deep dive into people that were off with anxiety to try and understand what that actually meant. And what was interesting was that for some of our staff, it wasn't actually work-related anxiety. It was the anxiety they had because they had caring responsibilities for family members, for children. And I think the sort of stress was life stress more than work stress, but obviously it was impacting on their ability to do their job. So what we're trying to do is work out how we use things like our carer's passport to make sure we give people that flexibility so that the first port of call isn't necessarily to go off sick, but maybe it's about changing the patterns that they're working.
If I can follow up on that as well, we discussed that as well in the briefing, which I will share with everybody around the different needs and circumstances of individuals, personal situations, work situations, and how that's determined and separated. So, yeah, I'll be happy to share that. And this will be coming back to Scrutiny again, the people strategy, and we can focus some more on that.
Can I commend the work that's been done on the damp and mould and condensation cases, but I still believe that there are some outstanding cases. Within my ward, we've had 2 pretty horrific cases reported into ward councillors. When could we actually see that the level, I believe it's about 200 cases, when will those cases be dealt with, and what plans are there moving forward to ensure that there aren't long waits again for damp and mould to be treated?
I mean, I can't give you the exact detail on that, and I don't. I mean, Rachel looks as if she could. But I mean, just to say, the actual backlog, the enormous backlog that we did have, has definitely gone down. You will see an increase at this time of year, obviously, because it's damper weather and perhaps a case that somebody had last winter, it went away during the summer, or dried up a bit in the summer. I don't know. Well, I don't know any specific details that you may be thinking of, but certainly we feel we are on top of the backlog. But I'll let Rachel come in.
I actually don't know the answer, but what I was just going to suggest was, obviously this is the data at Q2, so obviously we will have more up-to-date data, and I guess it's for perhaps something, as Andy said at the beginning, on the back of this update. Is that something that you want to schedule into the relevant panel in terms of having that either that transformation SRO or somebody from the service around performance to come and talk about what the improvement is within that service?
And just one last question on the council tax collection rate is what percentage are we actually owed council tax money, and how does that compare to last year?
I can't give you the exact figure because I'm due to have a conversation, I think it's next week, where I'll get an update on it. We always felt that the collection rate would fall slightly after we reduced the support for residents in the council tax. So we always anticipated it being more challenging in certain circumstances like that money. However, it's pretty much in line with where we'd expect to be at this time of the annual cycle, and officers will be continuing to make every effort to recover that money. but I'd say it's pretty much where we would expect. It's probably a little bit behind time, but I will be personally dealing with the updated figures, but it will be next week.
I just want to go back to the EHCPs, and so I want to obviously say it's great to see the improvement and see it as a highlight, because it's something that comes up in my panels a lot. But as you can imagine, with parents, it's such an emotive issue, something that I get questions about a lot. So even though we've seen the improvement and it's fantastic to see, what I would like to stress that it's important that we continue to see those improvements. So I'd be interested to know, that what's in place to ensure that we don't take, the foot off the pedal with regards to that. So well done on that. But also, the one thing that I hear a lot in my panel from parents is around where they're unhappy with either the delivery or the timeliness of the HCP, the process in place for complaints and dealing with those, and how can we deal with those quicker, what resources being put in to make sure the parents' voice is heard.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I entirely agree on the emotive element of this, and it is really, really hard, isn't it? One of the things that we've tried to do is to make sure that we're clear that the people that are actually assessing the plans and also dealing with the kind of communication back to parents. And that's quite hard, because sometimes you do need to talk to the person that's assessing the plan to get that technical knowledge. But what we found was that they were spending so much time kind of communicating about the status of their applications or complaints that it was taking time away from doing the assessment. So it became a bit of a false economy. So we're trying to make sure that the kind of customer handling element of it is separate to the people doing the assessments, to make sure that they can focus on getting those assessments done, and that we keep residents updated as much as possible. But it is always really, really challenging, and we've not got that perfectly yet. So, but they may be able to come and give you a further update at your panel at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from panel members? Just in more general terms, thinking about outcomes and not just outputs, are the performance indicators used adequate and robust in capturing meaningful outcomes and not just outputs, so they demonstrate whether the council are improving quality of life for residents?
I think it's probably a journey. You will know, obviously, you've seen performance reports previously. What started to come forward this year and last year is a lot more data and indicators in those appendix. And what we try and do is, as part of the data development agenda, is look at what would be a more appropriate measure, because as you rightly say, sometimes you can be measuring something because it's statutory, but it actually doesn't reflect what's actually the customer's experience. So we are trying to look at what measures we have and make sure they are actually what difference we're making, not just counting the number of things that we do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I think I'd just like to add as well, welcome the EHCP, damp and mould and the progress we made in those areas and the commitment to further improve those areas. So thank you to the Cabinet members and officers for attending. We note that there's an item on the Growth and Regeneration Scrutiny Panel work programme provisionally scheduled for January 26 associated with building safety compliance, which includes damp, mould and condensation. So the question could be fed into that as well. And we note that the current position be noted and be recommended that these reports continue to be submitted to the committee on a regular basis so that lead members can pick up any items within the remit of their panel that may require any further scrutiny. Thank you. Moving on to item 8, corporate risk, quarter 2, 25-26, with reference to the report submitted to Cabinet on the 2nd of December. I'd like to invite Councillor Turner to introduce, and then Martin Dernley, Head of Audit and Risk, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. As you pointed out, this went to Cabinet on Tuesday. I would describe this report very much as steady as she goes, and there's nothing of any significance since the last report, and I'm sure Martin will give you the details as he sees them.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Yes, I agree completely that this is a fairly steady state position with regard to the Council's risk management recording and reporting. The two areas that are the only two areas that show change this period, other than sort of minor textual issues, but in terms of scores, are that the emergency planning and business continuity risk has been reduced from 12 to 8. I think this reflects the fact that we now believe that the control frameworks associated with that are fully embedded and in place to monitor the adherence of the obligations which we have as emergency planning and making sure that the Council's business runs properly. And then the more for noting really than for any kind of adjustment, we've slightly retitled a risk that was previously called project management and delivery to recognise that this is really an emphasis on economic growth and resilience areas, because most of the projects that were considered by that assessment are those projects that relate to regeneration and infrastructure projects. And that score at 12 remains in place as to where it was before. Other than that, Chair, I've no particular desire other than to remind the Management Committee that it's a role of the individual service and activity-based scrutiny panels to carry out their own deep dives into risk assessment and to discuss that with either us or the services related to as they see fit. So that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. Any questions or comments from members? Can I just ask, on the highest scoring risks on the register currently presented, which presents the greatest threat to delivery of priorities or financial sustainability?
Yes, Chair. Yes, indeed, and I think that's one that remains within well, my colleague aside me and Councillor Turner are well aware that does continue to remain a key threat. And as Councillor Turner mentioned earlier, there are still some uncertainties exactly about the Council's position ongoing, because it all depends on how the settlement that comes in the next few weeks arises, and also about the extent to which that gain, if we do gain, is then negated by a need to do some kind of smoothing over 2 or 3 years. That remains an area of uncertainty as I understand it. And then the other threats are those which are related to send, etc., as has already been mentioned, and I think will be mentioned by the external auditors when they eventually produce their report on 25-26.
Thank you. So you're happy that we have a robust current risk management framework in place?
Yes, I mean, the thing about risk management is people will always say to you, why didn't you spot? But to the best of our ability and knowledge, and through the combined wisdom of both operational service and strategic management of the organisation and members, this is the outcome and the product that we can produce. But you cannot be... Yeah, I'd never say never. We're not necessarily going to find something, but at least we think we've identified those areas, and we're aware that those are in the view of management.
Thank you. Any questions, comments to add? No? Thank you very much. Thank you to Cabinet members, officers for attending. We note that the current position be noted. To be recommended that these reports continue to be submitted to the committee on a regular basis so that lead members can pick up any items in the remit of the panel that may require further scrutiny. Thank you. Item 9, Council Plan Pre-Decision Scrutiny. The committee will receive a presentation in respect of the key components of the next Council Plan for discussion and feedback. Councillor Patterson will introduce, and then Stephen Bonnell, Head of Policy and Partnerships and Corporate Planning, will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, as this is here for pre-decision, I mean, really, I think I'm going to go straight over to Stephen for the presentation, and it's to receive your views on how next year's council plan is structured. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So today I'm just going to set out what the council plan is, just as a reminder, how we're changing our approach for this council plan. It's the draft priorities that we've been working on with the leader and cabinet, and next steps and timescales for development. So first of all, what is the council plan? Just as a reminder. So the council plan sets out the overarching priorities for the council. It doesn't and shouldn't attempt to describe everything the council does, but it does set out some broad areas of focus that describe the direction that we're going as a council. It informs the quarterly corporate performance monitoring, which the committee has just considered, and helps us to communicate priorities internally with the workforce, across our departments, with partners and with the public. And it sits alongside our partnership strategies. So that diagram on the right there, you can see how both the council plan and our partnership-owned partnership strategies contribute to the shared outcomes and vision for the borough. So this year we're changing our approach slightly. So there's two significant changes to point to, really. So now that the government has confirmed we will have longer term financial settlements, we're able to now set a 3-year plan with more confidence. So the plan that we are developing will be more explicitly a 3-year plan. We've always had longer term commitments in the council plan, so regeneration plans and so on, which of course stretch beyond individual financial years. But we will this year be making the next council plan much more explicitly a 3-year plan. The other significant change is around the partnership elements. So following the corporate peer challenge, which we'll come on to later in this meeting, we had some feedback from partners that they wanted to work more strategically with us on a longer term planning horizon. As part of this, we've been engaging with partners about our vision and shared outcomes and ways of working together. And we are developing a separate partnership work document that will it will be referenced in the current council plan, but the plan is to have a separate document that describes our partnership working that is more explicitly owned by partners. Obviously, the council has an important role in convening partnership working, but we do want that to be a shared thing. So that is another significant change this time. I should say, just on the longer term plan, obviously that is something that we've discussed at this committee before over the years. I think it's been raised a number of times, and I think as the leader set out a couple of times, we haven't been able to set out an explicitly longer term plan previously because of that uncertainty around our finances, but that's now been resolved. So in terms of the draft priorities, these are an iteration of the current priorities, and I think that's an important steer that we've had from the leader and cabinet, that we are building on the progress that we've made with the current council plan. So some of those will be broadly familiar from the current council plan, but slightly evolved. So those are the draft priorities. We will be engaging. We are in the process of engaging services around what delivering those priorities looks like over the next 3 years. So, as I said, we're engaging with services. We'll be coming back to Scrutiny for an informal discussion in January. Building on the discussion today, we'll be able to point to how we've acted on any feedback and questions, and we'll hopefully be able to share a draft at that point in that informal session. The council plan, we always consider the public budget engagement results as part of developing the council plan as well. Sometimes that points to particular issues or things to highlight in the council plan. The council plan and the budget are in many ways two sides of the same coin. And so they'll be both considered together at full council in February. That's everything. So questions, ideas, discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. Any questions or comments from panel members? Can I welcome the 3-year plan? And could I just have a bit more information or thoughts on how that will reflect and what we'll be able to do differently and how it will further enhance how we're doing things with how we've done it previously?
I'll just briefly say that, I mean, I think well, I've always said that I would like to see certainly a 3-year plan as opposed to just the 12 months. We do need to be able to see longer term. But I also think the fact that the government is now giving us a 3-year settlement, financial settlement, excuse me, that really helps that process. And I do know that certainly officers have been already working on the priorities as they have them at the moment, the draft priorities, and seeing how those can be expanded, or not extended, but expanded over those 3 years. So what do we do in year 1? What do we then do in year 2? What do we then do in year 3? Which is it's a good thing to see that planning ahead. But I will hand over to Stephen to add a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think the opportunities are able, as I said, part of the purpose of the council plan is to communicate our priorities and what we're doing as a council. Given that we'll be able to communicate now over a longer time period, we'll be able to point more explicitly to how each year's activity builds on the last. So we'll be able to kind of show more confidently, I think, how we do have longer term plans across the whole range of priorities. As I said, we've been able to do some of that previously with pointing to things like our regeneration plans in the council plan, but we'll now be able to set that out more clearly, how year 2 activity builds on year 1 and year 3 builds on the progress made in the first 2 years. So yeah, it's a good opportunity really.
Thank you. On the priorities, would you be able to expand on how these have evolved and what's changed and the thought process behind that?
Well, the thoughts from the Cabinet at the moment are that the existing priorities should become firmer, should be more specific, should be able to allude to very specific things that may happen over those 3 years, so that they are changing in that. Well, they're being tweaked, I suppose, rather than massively changing, because those 4 priorities, looking after the vulnerable, helping people to thrive, the local economy, I mean, they have to be, don't they? I mean, so it is making it clear what we aim to achieve under each of those priorities, which is more important.
Councillor Ali.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. The plan looks really good. Just wondered, are there points within that plan where you will be reviewing, seeing what's worked well that previous year, and if you need to adapt, is there process in place to do that?
Yeah, I mean, one option we're considering at the moment is, of course, it is a 3-year plan, but like all long-term plans, you do come back to them and review them as they're in delivery. So we probably will continue to refresh the plan on an annual basis, not to fundamentally change it, but I think, as the leaders said, to kind of iterate on each year's progress.
Yeah, and at those trigger points where you are looking to refresh and make changes, will there be some consultation with council officers, or what's that process? Who will be able to contribute to that?
I think we probably go through a similar process to what we've done to date with our kind of annual council plans, which would involve coming to scrutiny and engaging across services. So yeah, it would definitely have councillor input as part of that.
Thank you, yeah. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself earlier either. I'm Andy Simcox. I'm one of the service directors. I'll remember now I've come back in. One of the other things that we will do is obviously we will build upon our understanding of all of the items that are in this room today. So where are we at in our financial reporting, our overarching performance reporting and transformation activities, to then inform, okay, what have we delivered, what hasn't been delivered, what needs to be improved, and that then feeds into the discussions with officers that Stephen's described. So it should be continuous in that respect as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great, because that's my only concern with, whilst it's great to have a 3-year plan, and I see that it's good to plan long time, but it's quite easy to get to the end of 3 years and think, we've not achieved that. So it's important to revisit.
I'll just say again, obviously it will inform the quarterly performance reporting as well. So there'll be that regular check through that as well.
Could you comment further on the partnership framework and how that's changed and emerged?
Yes, so we've done quite a lot of engagement with partners over the summer, and we've been to Health and Wellbeing Board, an Employment and Skills Partnership. We have a partnership executive group, which is of senior officers from across all sectors in Kirklees. And on the back of that feedback, on the back of those discussions, we've had lots of feedback around ways that we could tweak the shared outcomes. The vision, for example, which I pointed to in the presentation, some partners are asking us, could we set a time frame on that? So, in some places they have a 2040 vision or a 2035 vision. So we're taking all that feedback on board and considering that with partners. We had a Picture of Kirklees partnership event in November, which brought together a kind of even wider range of voices, and a lot of the feedback from that confirmed what we'd heard over the summer in the various partnership groups. So partners are really keen to work more together, definitely on longer term opportunities. I think the feeling is we work really well together already operationally, and on some of our longer term things like our regeneration plans, we work really well together, but there's definitely appetite to do more. And I think, as I said in the presentation, we heard that through the corporate peer challenge processes as well. So the stage we're at the moment is taking on all that partner feedback, and we will then we're playing that back to partners, and then we'll be at the stage then at some point next year to produce a draft revised framework document. But as I said, we want this to be led by partners rather than council led, and so we haven't kind of set out anything firmly at this point.
Thank you. It's really positive. Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments from members? Okay, so thank you to the leader, Stephen, for presenting the report. We know that the comments feedback made by the committee be considered in the future development of the Council Plan 26-29. That it be noted that the committee will receive further consideration to the Council Plan at the informal session on the 16th of January, and we welcome the production of a 3-year plan as previously discussed with scrutiny. Thank you. Item 10, Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge Update. This is in respect to the progress in responding to the recommendations contained in the Local Government Association's Corporate Peer Challenge Report 24, with reference to the report considered by Cabinet on the 2nd of December 25. The report also references the progress review report produced by the LGA further to the second visit in September 25. I'd like to ask Councillor Patterson to introduce and Stephen again to present the update.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you say, this is the report following the final visit that we had from the LGA in September. What we are reporting here in terms of the progress on the original action plan is not much different in as far as we are still well on track with all of the action points, the 42 action points that were highlighted as a result of that visit. What you have here is a report now from the Local Government Association and their conclusions following that second report and how they saw that progress that we've been made. So for the detail of that, I will pass over to Stephen. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So just a bit of background to start. So as you know from previous discussions here at this committee, we had a corporate peer challenge back in November. That's part of, November 2024. That's part of the Local Government Association's improvement offer into the local government sector. So local authorities have those every 5 years or so, and it involves people from the Local Government Association and senior people from other local authorities coming in and interviewing officers and councillors to see how we're doing in delivering our priorities. The result of that was 8 recommendations, and we produced an action plan which was agreed by Cabinet in April this year. And since then we've been working hard on delivering those. I think we came back in the summer to update on the progress against those actions. So we're here again today to tell you about the progress so far since then. In September, as a normal part of the process, we had the LJ colleagues visit us again for a progress review visit. That was on the 23rd of September, and they produced a report off the back of that visit, giving their perspective on the progress we're making against the recommendations that they made. That was considered at Cabinet this week, and I believe committee members have been pointed towards the Cabinet report for more information on that. I'll just run through some of the highlights from that. So the LGA noted the progress made by the Council on delivering against the recommendations set out in the action plan. The 2 things that we're particularly proud of, although there's lots of good stuff in there, but 2 things we're particularly proud of is those 2 quotes up there. So the report notes that working relationships between the leader, Cabinet, Chief Executive and senior management have matured further and collectively have brought stability, clarity, grip and more energy to the Council. And we're very happy about that finding. And they've also said there is greater confidence tempered with realism, which of course is important, from the collective senior political management team about how they will address current and future challenges. So we're really happy with those areas of progress. As the leader said, we have 42 actions in the action plan. 14 of those are fully completed in the appendix to the Cabinet report. Those are colour-coded blue. 27 of those are ongoing and on track. I should say 2 of those have had the timescales reprofiled, and I'll explain why in a second. Only 1 of the actions has slipped against the original timescale, and again I'll touch on that shortly. Some of the key successes so far are up there. So we launched a new approach for resourcing transformation activity in April. We've launched our council culture refresh initiative also in April. Agreed an updated member officer protocol in May. A new inclusive economic strategy. One of our key partnership strategies was considered and agreed at council this year. We've published a budget book and updated the medium-term financial strategy, set out the next steps for our cultural heart, and completed partner engagement on the development of a new partnership framework, which I mentioned in the previous item. And that's just a snapshot of some of the things that we've made progress in. In terms of the ongoing work, there is a lot still to do, and that's a list of some of the key things on that slide. So we're continuing the engagement and transparency around the budget, and you'll know that the public budget engagement is happening. We're developing next steps following an external review of our assets, developing a long-term strategy to increase residential provision in town centres. Links to the local plan process, which members will be aware of and interested in. We're developing a new housing strategy, and we're reviewing the delivery of a member development framework, all the training and development that is available for members. We're maintaining our focus on performance in social care and homes and neighbourhoods, and some of that came up, I think, in the performance item earlier, and continuing to deliver the customer and access programme, which is about improving the customer experience of interacting with the council. We have established a new digital transformation board, and we're making progress on developing a new digital strategy, as well as drafting a new longer-term council plan, which again I updated on in the previous item. So in terms of the slipped action, that's around reviewing our capital programme. So we regularly review our capital programme, and we have lots of robust mechanisms in place to do that. Members will be aware that the government has been undergoing a fair funding review, which is about ensuring that local authorities have the right amount of funding relative to the need in their areas. That is having an impact on the council's finances, and we're working to understand what that impact is, which is why the original timescale on that has slipped. We're also developing more clarity on some of the requirements around our digital transformation work as well. So we're expecting more clarity around the capital programme in the second half of next year.
Stephen, may I interrupt and just ask for further clarification about the fair funding review and the implications of that and timescales involved?
Yeah, so the government's published the final the kind of final formula recently. We'll expect the more information on the final settlement just before Christmas, so we'll have more details at that point, and then in the new year we'll have even more details. Councillor Turner might want to say more on this as well.
Excuse me. So we had an indication from MHCLG some time ago about what we may receive. Recent conversation has been that we will receive that in the last week before Christmas, and some of the modelling is still being worked out through MHCLG, but we are told that what we were told previously, we will not be a million miles away, but the exact figure will not come until just before Christmas. But we're ready for it, because as I say, we sort of expect to get pretty much what we were anticipating. So I don't think there's going to be huge changes, not for Kirklees. Some authorities may have a different, because the way the formula works around fair funding, but we're quite optimistic we'll be doing all right out of fair funding, which is about time. The deprivation of the north of England was recognised as an area that needs investment. So, as I say, last week before Christmas, we should get the final figure, but we're optimistic we've pretty much nailed down what it's likely to be to within a bit.
Thank you. So just moving on to the actions with the reprofiled timescales. So we have an action in the action plan around delivery of a Kirklees economic summit and reviewing economic partnership arrangements. In the course of developing plans for those actions, we obviously started engaging with partners. And as happens when you engage widely, you hear about partners' plans to do their own economic summit kind of activity. Given that economic growth and investment and regeneration is very much an area of partnership responsibility, we wanted to make sure we did this together. So we worked with Huddersfield Unlimited to support an event around investment in Huddersfield in, I think that was in October, sorry, it might have been, yes, it was October, I think. That was a very successful event, brought investors together to look at all the opportunities in and around Huddersfield and the benefits that those bring for the whole borough. We're now working on another event, again with partners, including Kirklees College and Homes England and the Combined Authority, on another event that's focused on investment in the north of the borough. So we're looking at that taking place in Dewsbury, but it will be about investment across the whole of the north of the borough. So we've changed the timescales to reflect the fact that we've come up with a better plan, basically for achieving that action. As a result of that, we obviously had to extend the timescales around reviewing our economic partnership arrangements, because those summits and events will inform that review. So that's why those timescales have slipped for good reasons. So the next steps on the action plan, we'll continue to deliver and monitor the action plan. We'll provide further reports as required. Obviously, over time, an increasing number of those actions will be completed, and we might at some point look at how the actions fit in with broader activity. So we'll embed the work from the corporate peer challenge into the suite of relevant transformation and improvement programs. Again, some of those were touched on earlier in the meeting, but that includes our asset strategy, digital strategy, and our council culture refresh. So welcome any questions, comments on any of the updates contained within the report or anything that we said today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. Can I just start with the actions? What do you see as the most challenging actions that need to be implemented?
Well, I think the one around capital that we've just spoken about, obviously the uncertainty created by some of the funding environment. Although, as Councillor Turner said, we've done lots of prudent estimations on what that will be, and engaging with MHCLG on that as well. But the reason that slipped is because it's a complicated area. So we just want to make sure that we're doing that properly. So I'd probably point to that. Partnership working is always tricky. So in terms of reviewing our economic partnership arrangements, as I said, economic growth is influenced by a range of factors, from government policy to local activity. But there are big opportunities there as well. The English devolution bill and the new powers for mayors will hopefully help to boost economic growth in the region and Kirklees. So we're monitoring the opportunities out there as well to help to address some of those uncertainties.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from panel members? Councillor Amin.
Thank you, Chair. I want to commend the senior management team and the Cabinet and the Leader's Office for working well together. It shows through all the projects coming through, and it does show through the council plan. I think my question really is around how does that then tie in with middle management and then obviously the workforce, because I'm hoping it's filtered down and that they, even at middle management or workforce level, they find easy access to the Cabinet or the Leader's Office as well, so that filters through to the workforce rather than just having a top-heavy approach.
I'll just briefly say something, but then I'll hand over either potentially to Rachel rather than Stephen. But I mean, I think it is. I mean, I hear certainly things like our priorities being quoted back at us, by staff. And we've recently had I should say the Chief Exec has recently held his end-of-year celebration for all staff, which I think was not only well attended, oversubscribed, and I think it was a very positive event, not just in what was being said to people, but I mean, I think in people's response and reception of the things the progress that's been presented to them. So I do think that's coming through. And of course, there's as the report talks about our council, I think that's made a difference for staff, and that's getting really filtered through. But I think officers could better speak on that than myself.
I think the leader mentioned the Our Council culture refresh initiative. That is a whole council approach. Obviously, we know the way we communicate with the workforce is different if you're an office-based senior manager versus if you, for example, work out in a place. If you're a bin man or working on the roads, for example, then the way we communicate is different. But we are using all our communication channels to get the messages out about our council and our priorities as well. So we've looked at things like text messages and so on for people who have work phones and are out in places. And the leader mentioned the end of year event that happened recently. That was attended by frontline teams as well, and we had they won awards as well for their work. We had loads of nominations for awards from frontline teams, middle managers, and more senior figures. So the engagement is there. I think there's always more we can do, but we are always mindful of that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add, we've done the staff survey recently, and we've obviously looked at that across the whole organisation and got service level, well, directorate level information, and then down to sort of service groupings. And we've decided to run some employee engagement sessions on the back of that, which is an opportunity for staff to come together in a safe space and just kind of talk through and put a bit more, I suppose, meat on the bones of what those staff survey results had been saying. And we want to keep that as an ongoing dialogue rather than it just being something that is a one-off, because obviously surveys aren't necessarily the right way to engage with all staff. We also use our staff networks as a good sounding board in terms of any issues that's kind of been translated from how staff are feeling. But it is very much an ongoing process, is our kind of relationship with our staff. But we did tie the end of year event to the Our Council programme, so people were nominated for awards based on those 7 Our Council principles, which hopefully will help to embed that approach.
Thank you, that's really positive. I think my only other concern is that you have a small percentage of the workforce that don't have access to computers, for example, cleaners, frontline workers that are always out. So how do you ensure that you are reaching those members of staff?
Yeah, I mean, catering and cleaning come under me now, and actually the response was quite low. So what Adele has done as the service director, she's done a few team meetings with the staff and said, how better can we target in terms of getting you to sort of give us your views and feedbacks. And it was interesting because some of the feedback was we weren't sure whether, you know, we'd be identified. So some of it was about kind of personal identity, you know, whether you were identifiable or not. So we've put a bit of an action plan together for those areas where we saw a lower response rate, and it very much was the people that don't have access to IT. But we did do some kind of I know we were obviously trying to not print too much, but we did do some toolbox talk sessions in some of our depots with staff where we went through some of the questions and tried to get feedback that way. But again, we're always trying to improve what we do.
That's really positive, thank you.
Can I just add as well? Kind of ironically, so I'm the lead working with the chief executive on the digital strategy, and key to that is digital inclusion. The irony, I guess, is that there's a key part of that which is making sure that people who are potentially experiencing digital exclusion are not excluded from all of these activities as well. So it's a key part of that activity, even though it's less about the tech, if you understand what I mean, to make sure that we understand that and we know and hear and listen that is obviously a key point for members as well throughout our discussions about that.
Thank you. Would you say there are any gaps or misalignments between the Council's stated priorities that are in there and the outcomes really in the current organisation capacity or performance? And if there are, how would these be addressed?
I don't think so. Principally because when we were developing the action plan, we developed it in a kind of realistic way. So we were really clear on only committing to things that we knew we had the resources to progress. So I feel very confident that we've got everything that we need in place to keep those actions moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from panel members? If not, thank you very much. Thank you to Leader of the Council again for attending and updating, and officers for presenting the report. We note that the update report to be noted and the progress against the actions be welcomed, and a final update be provided to scrutiny in 26-27. Thank you. That concludes today's meeting, all agenda items. Thank you all for your attendance, your contributions. The next meeting of the committee will be on Friday the 16th of January 2026, when we will undertake pre-decision scrutiny of the budget proposals. Thank you.